Now, let's say in that general region, delegates are expected to flock to Dubai for the 28th edition of the annual United Nations Climate Change Conference, known to you and I as COP28. It will be taking place on the 30th of November all the way to 12th December. And this event this year looks to deliberate on how to confront the climate crisis that is taking a growing toll on human issues around the world. Despite the growing urgency to deal with this problem as soon as we can, past meetings have largely failed to result in the necessary cuts in greenhouse gas emissions or to adequately support a transition to a lot more renewable energy and away from fossil fuels. Let's explore this in a bit more detail. Nick Mudimba is in Dubai ahead of the United Nations Climate Change Conference, which kicks off at the end of November. Nick, so the UAE, of course, as host, it's come under quite a lot of criticism as a host country for this year's event because it's a state that has enormous amounts of fossil fuel reserves and it's made a ton of money off of it. What's the government's response to criticism that the UAE's defense of fossil fuels is at odds with it hosting COP28?
Absolutely, Rama. So the criticism has been there for quite some time, and this time around, all roads actually leads to the COP28 here in the UAE. But now the government policies have made sure that these emissions are actually reduced. So in the course of the week, I went to different companies that actually use a lot of heavy machinery, and the policies the government has made here is actually amazing. So 90% of their energy, and of course, which we knew about that coming from the grid, is actually being used by solar power, and they're trying to make sure that also green mobility is there too. So many people in the companies, the civilians, all those people who are actually working in the UAE have been told now it's time to rejig things. It's time to make sure that indeed clean energy, carbon footprint is there too, and this is what many of the companies have been given the strict policy. Now, their timing is all about 2050. 2050 is the target they've given themselves, and the industries are faster actually doing this, from food production, from the normal medical production, from even the food, in terms of food security. They're trying to go green to make sure that this criticism actually reduces, because fossil fuel has been the major cause of greenhouse gases, Rama.
So from the UAE's perspective, what does a successful COP28 look like? From their perspective, what policy outcomes have they said, look, we want to achieve this. If we attain these specific agreements at the end of this event, we'll consider this to be successful?
So I'll give you a few of them, which they're really strictly following up. So one of them is actually protected natural ecosystem. That's a priority they're giving, and of course, a fixed climate financing. They're saying that all the other conferences and meetings have been held, but mostly they don't see the results. But for COP28, they hope that this will be an avenue where they'll settle this once and for all, because there's been a lot of talking but no action. Another one is the real action and transforming energy system. As I've told you, many of the companies here are now going green. Now, according to the DEWA, that is a Dubai Electricity and Water Authority, they're saying that the grid is being relaxed a bit. And this is where now, according to many experts, they're saying they're winning the game. But still, criticism is coming from all different types of the cylinders, because now it's one of the top oil-producing countries in the world. Now, prioritizing and mobilizing all industries to give human health a priority. Now, it's a desert environment, and vertical farming has been introduced in various places in this country. This is where now they're coming in to show the world that indeed we are trying our level best to reduce the emissions, we are going green, and this is the direction it's taking in a few years. Now, the future of proof of food. This is why now most of them are actually trying to store food to make sure indeed there's food security in this country. Being a desert, they've made sure that indeed there's consistency in agriculture. Rain-fed agriculture is not something that depending on here. It's about technology, but they're making it very green, Rama.
All right, one last question for you, and this goes back to the point you made about where the UAE gets its electricity, right? So this is a country that sits on over, at least as of last year, 100 billion barrels of proven oil reserves, nearly 300 trillion cubic feet of natural gas as well. So well over 90% of its power is coming from fossil fuels, but they have a target to hit net zero by 2050. That's not a very long period of time, 27 years. So how are they going to do it?
So this time around, they're making electric cars tax-free. If you want to import electric cars, it's actually tax-free. And right now, many of the taxis here in the UAE are a Tesla. And that's, according to them, a big step they're making to make sure that indeed they're going green. Now, people have been given the opportunity to get bikes from the city centers. You pay a small fee and you can actually do that green mobility. And a lot of other measures they've put. And of course, a punishment for those who are not following the policy. They're very tough on this because they say it's enough talk and it's just time to get to work. So they're making sure step by step that indeed from companies to civilians to even major government entities that indeed the clean energy has to be there to run.